Hello, everybody. Monica, Empower Your Health, Empower Your Life TV. Welcome. At Empower TV, we connect you to health and wellness resources so that you can empower yourself and create the life you want and the life you love. Let's go. So today we have a really exciting guest. I am really looking forward to speaking to you. Hello.
Hello.
And hello, everybody. Thank you for being here and for your time. And if you will have any questions for our guest, Pauline, or for myself, please you can type those questions in the YouTube chat. So you're very welcome to do that. And for today's topic, what I would like to discuss, among other things, let's introduce it that way. In the process of healing, we need to connect to our body's wisdom. But how do we do that? And how do we talk to our bodies? What language do we use? My belief is that art and creativity can help us immensely in this process. They can help us in the healing process. So what are your thoughts? And so the topic will be the intersection between therapy and creativity. What language do we use to communicate with the body to heal? And we have a fabulous guest today to discuss these topics. And of course, anything else that she would like to talk about. So I'm very excited for our conversation. I cannot wait to see what will come out of it. So, and I've been really looking forward to this conversation. So, and thank you everybody for being here. So our guest today is Pauline Hugger. And Pauline is a healer, a teacher, and an artist. So who would be better to talk about those subjects of creativity and healing? And Pauline is originally from Texas, and she lives on Galveston Island, and she's a professional clay artist. She won awards in multiple art exhibitions, and she's also a member of the Saltgrass Potters Guild of Texas. She is in the process of selling her pieces in local venues and developing an online presence. Pauline is now also building a myofascial release practice after working for over 10 years as a massage therapist and also studying myofascial release with John Barnes since 2018. Pauline has a bachelor's degree in art history and modern foreign languages and a Masters of Humanities from the University of Dallas. Pauline loves to travel and to connect with people, so you may encounter her on her life's illuminated path as a healer, a teacher, and an artist. All right. Well, welcome, Pauline. How are you today? Thank you for being here.
Hello, Monica. This is Sammy. He's joining us today also.
Sammy. Well, Pauline and Sammy, wonderful. Oh gosh, we are dog lovers here too. So, how are you doing today?
Great, thank you. It's beautiful weather, and I'm just really excited for this. My first time on a live podcast as a guest, and I love when people ask my opinion because I often have it, and now I have permission to share it.
You have absolute permission to share everything that you consider like you would like to share today with our audience. And I'm very excited and also very grateful for your presence here.
Well, I'm grateful for you. Thank you, Monica.
So you have a very diverse and exciting bio. You are a healer, a therapist, an artist. You also studied languages. So this is why, I wanted to invite you to this conversation to talk about healing, to talk about art, to talk about communication. Very important subjects. So I would love to hear you tell us more about your background and where you come from. How did you end where you are today? Anything that comes to mind?
Well, I think the key here is that I study these things because I'm constantly seeking them. So I got into languages as a young person. My first exposure to language was in junior high, and the teacher showed me pictures of the blue-footed booby, which is a bird on the Galapagos Islands off of Ecuador. And I was convinced that I would someday go there, and I'm still convinced that someday I'll go there. And I was in that enthused me to study Spanish. And my brother at the time was also studying French. And so by the time I got into high school and I grew the opportunities available to me to study Spanish, I started French. And then, so by the time I got into college, I wanted to do something in international business, relations, something like that. I wanted to travel. I wanted to use the languages. And so I started studying the French language and got into the literature and figured out, no, I don't even want to read this stuff in English. I'm not going to read it in French. So then by that time had been introduced to art history. In senior year of high school, I took an art class because I had an elective available, and I got to play with all sorts of things, clay being one of them. And it just opened up a whole new world. Even though I grew up around dance and performance, I never considered and we were crafty, but we weren't artistic. And so that thrilled me. I don't know if you hear the background, but that's a motorcycle going by.
Oh my God. Yes, we have a motorcycle race actually in the background. Oh my goodness.
It's the largest motorcycle rally. Yeah, it's the Lone Star Rally, and it's on the island right now. This is the biggest weekend.
Well managed.
And so that's what intrigued me about art. So when I was in university and I didn't know what to do with, I kind of came to the end of the language fascination. I had been introduced to art history, and I'd taken, so I started taking some ceramics classes there, and I struggled because I wanted to be a ceramic artist, but I knew deep down that I didn't have the talent, and, or at least I believe that. And also I had this background of, that's not really reasonable. You need to have a marketable skill that's going to help you make a living. And also I had emphasis on academics. And so I saw the opportunity to hone the written and oral communication skills and research skills by studying art history. So that's how I navigated not with ease. Okay, this was all very tumultuous. In the meantime, I was able to go to Europe for a semester with the university. I studied down in Mexico for the language classes, and so I was already setting the stage of what I continue to enjoy. And then having done the academics of art history and learning it, what that entailed, I still got to go to the studio. So I got to do all the art stuff without claiming it or being responsible for it as a production artist. And again, I did not feel like I had the talent to do that. And then it was also during university. I was 19 years old, and I had been active all my life with dance and cheerleading and other ventures and intramural sports or whatever. And but I was at an aerobics class because this was the 90s, y'all. And I just couldn't get up. I had something went wrong in my lower back, and I went to go put on my shorts, and I could not bend over and lift my leg at the same time without this excruciating pain. So that started my pain journey. And that's been, so for the last 30 years, all those items have intertwined. And when I came to one of my wit's ends, where I was teaching English to speakers of other languages in a community college in the early 2000s. And so I was meeting international students. I was working with an international group. I was in education. I was around the languages. I was taking more classes on how to second language learn. I was budding in that. And then the school got audited, and apparently well, I should back up. My degrees weren't according to what they needed, and I would have to go back to school, and it was a money thing, a time thing, and I was like, well, I just got done on the job training, everything they're telling me I need to go get certified. And because when I came back to Dallas, I had spent some time out traveling and doing some things, doing some like missionary work and doing some education, doing some more classes out of interest, more philosophy, theology, and working with young people. But when I came back and I was teaching young adults and I was finishing my master's, I was personally had gone through so much pain and struggle looking for some relief. And I had tried traditional doctors in Western medicine. I had tried alternative doctors. I went to acupuncturists and chiropractors and TMJ specialists and headache specialists and eye doctors and foot doctors, and I had taken drugs. I had not taken vitamins. I had changed my diet. I tried herbs. That was my path, and I'm sure many can relate to that. I have found that many can relate to that. And being an academic, I was like, how did we get to this place that I can go into a doctor's office after having waited 2 hours? The doctor spends less than 7 minutes with me, does not touch me, and gives me no solution, no help, nothing. And so I was just I was like, I feel like an object. I'm just a number. They just want to throw pills at me. I would read the inside of the pharmaceutical insert, and I was aware of big pharma. There was this whole, battle within my own life to seek a solution. And I was like, how did we get to where the person doesn't even matter anymore? And so when I was doing my my graduate studies in humanities, I set out to figure that out for myself. I didn't need to write a book or do a study or anything. Pauline needed to know. And so I found myself writing papers about and connecting art and science, particularly. And at that time, I was looking at the Renaissance and the Baroque periods, and seeing, even as science and technology was advancing. And so while there was this explosion of understanding the human body, there was simultaneously reflected in art, painting, I did mostly painting review, this objectivization of the human person down to just a swatch on the table, an organism to work on. There was no connection with, because it even showed that the anatomy and physiology that later went into medical books was done on cadavers, dead people. And there are paintings, and I looked at the famous paintings showing these cadavers being autopsied, and that was my experience. And then, but as an undergraduate, I had, in my art history study, I was fascinated with architecture, and particularly what it meant to be sacred, as far as sacred space. So I had gone from this kind of evolution in the last, I would say it was over like 7 or 8 years. So I was like, okay, what is sacred space? I looked into that. I did my thesis on that. And then by the time I got back into graduate school and was looking into this about the human person, I started saying, what does it mean to be a sacred person? What does it mean to be a person? What does it mean to be a sacred person? And then this influence of science, and so that was already percolating in my own, and I was just teaching English to speakers of other languages, trying to help them adapt to the U.S. So there was no real coalition of things. And then when I was faced with possibly going back to school just to teach more language, I was like, no, I want to study medicine. I want to help people feel better. I want to fill the gap that I did not have. I want to be that resource in the doctor's office, maybe family practice, to offer their patients who are dealing with chronic pain alternative methods, counseling, coaching, how to make their life better, in conjunction with the doctor, right? So I thought I had to study medicine. And then I looked at that curriculum, and that looked like a 7-year plan. And I was like, ooh. And then I looked at what I had to do. Then I found out, well, maybe I can be a physician's assistant. Okay, that's a graduate plan. I've done that before. I can do that. I had to take 5 semesters of chemistry just to qualify to apply for a program. And by that time, I'd taken my anatomy, my physics, because I was working at a community college. I could take that, and the tuition was there, and it was a perfect combination for me. But chemistry was not my friend. And I got really sick one registration I had the flu and bronchitis and everything, and then I didn't get into my chemistry class, and that set my whole plan back, and I was like, now what am I going to do? So I had the A&P really well, and I had already adapted my life, because one of my goals was, okay, in 2000, I changed my life completely. I moved from where I was. I stopped working, as it were. I had to go live with a family member because my headaches were so bad and my pain was so bad, I was debilitated. Mm-hmm. But I was also industrious and American and had a work ethic, and so I had to go and prove myself. And so I went back to school, took out a loan and did the graduate school thing. And I had done graduate school, and then I got a part-time job. Okay, I can manage that. And so I was learning how to be a productive adult with pain, but I had to ease back into it. And then I found myself, okay, I have a full-time job. Now I can start taking classes because I'm a forever student, and I was doing A&P, anatomy and physiology. Couldn't get into the second semester of chemistry. I was like, well, then I'm going to go and take a ceramics class because it's across the hall from my office. And I haven't been around clay in a long time, and I think that would be very nurturing for me because I've been very sick. Because in addition to the chronic pain, I had those other things. And I was like, oh, man, I forgot how much I love clay, And I was working on the wheel and hand building and then making connections. And I was looking into the PA program. And then I had a chance to go travel in Central America. And I got smitten by my visit to Costa Rica. And I was like, I'm going to move here. And in order to do that, because I was already contemplating leaving my position at the job, moving cities I was in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in Texas, which is kind of in the middle of the state. And then I was going to go to San Antonio, another upcoming, this was 2005, 2006, so it's really upcoming. It's on the map. It's becoming the 3rd largest city in Texas, yada, yada. And it had a Hispanic population, so I could practice my Spanish. I had my friend from graduate school had just moved and bought a house there, so she could be my landlady. And then I could go to their PA program, their physician's assistant program, because they had a great University of Texas program. And then I could teach English as a second language, because I had already attempted to go down to Mexico and do all this, but that didn't work out. So that was my plan. And then I went to Costa Rica and said, shoot, if I'm going to move, I'm going to move to Costa Rica. And that's what I did. So I came back after a 1-week holiday in March, and I made arrangements. I thought, in order to make money when I live out of the United States, I'm going to take down some skills I can use, like massage therapy. So I looked into going to massage school. I finished my contract with my employer, and I moved to Costa Rica. And I became a massage therapist so that I could earn money while I live apart. And then I knew I could always teach English, but they didn't pay enough, down there. And so I lived there for 3.5 years, and I ended up in tourism. And that allowed me to study the language and move around. And so I got to see all of Central America. And so I was like, I'm fulfilling my little dream, right? And then it was time to come back. So during that time, I did do some soul searching. Around the time of finishing my master's degree and working there, I was in my own personal development, and I had, with resources around me, figured out some key life tenets that for my own well-being and health, and that is forgiveness, number one. And I had to define who I was and what my purpose was and what I needed. And that's when I defined and realized and started accepting that I was called to become and be an artist, a teacher, and a healer. And that all happened around that same time. So in 2010, I came back to the United States and ended up in Galveston and started working at a spa as a massage therapist. That's the skill set I had. That was what I was ready to do because that's where I was going to get the most money. I didn't want to teach. I didn't want to get into the art world. That's a whole nother. I didn't have enough skill or product or means to have my own studio and build that. So I'm going to go work for and do massage. And then along that journey, I was able to go back to the community colleges and get into the studios and start doing my ceramics. So the last 8 years, I've been consistently working with the clay for my own well-being. It was a personal endeavor and an outlet for creativity while I was a massage therapist, and I had already kind of satisfied my language thing, and my ultimate goal was I'd have an art center where it had the healing arts, the visual arts, and the language arts, and then doing massage therapy full time with my chronic pain that I've been managing. It became clear that I probably would not be able to make it to retirement age. And so I was looking for that career that was going to supplement and help me, provide a living. And I looked into real estate. Not hurrying. I tried starting a business with my brother. It was good because I learned that it's not what I want to do. and then I had been just working so hard at the spa and storing away my money and making my clay pots and living my life and meeting my friends and wondering what was the next step. And I got a brochure from John Barnes. And I had read it in the past and loved the concept and just thought it wasn't for me because I couldn't afford it. But by this time, I said, let me go check that out. That looks like exactly what I want to do. But before I jump in with 2 feet, let me go scope it out. I'll do a healing seminar. It's a 3 or 4 day commitment, a couple $100, see what this is all about. So I went in November of 2007 to Sedona for the first. No, I had been back to Sedona because I had been. That's how I knew I wanted to go because I had been. It was awesome. And I tell you, Monica, you know how they. I don't know who's listening, but if you're an MFR and you've been trained by John, they put the chairs really close together, right? And I was like, why are the chairs so daggum close together? We need space, and everything, then Rob came on stage and made announcements and said, okay, at least I can hear him, he's clear, and then John. And the lights were really low, the sound system was iffy, everything was a little too woo-woo for me. And then John comes up on stage, and I tell you what, and by this time I'm like already questioning I was like, hey, I'm just here to investigate. I'm just gonna have a good time.
You know what? Because you have such an amazing story, and
yeah, you push the play button, and I'm on. I'm sorry, please.
Just going to the most peak moment because you found something incredible there. But I want to kind of go back a little bit, if that's okay.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I'd love to listen to. I'd love to delve more into the principles that you are talking about. But
okay.
Further, you started talking about. You talked a little bit about. Your research and how deep you went back into history, trying to uncover the sources of what happened with medicine. And and I think this will lead us back to myofascial release because
absolutely, you'll see the connection. Yeah,
differently, but it's so incredible that you actually had. You actually did research and you understood. When did it all start? When did it start that, if we're trying to find healing with traditional medicine, unfortunately, there is no communication. Nobody actually touches the patient. Nobody looks at them. There's no communication with the body. And so that's what's fascinating to me. And would you like to just expand a little bit more about what you've learned and how you see, how do we actually talk with our bodies from
Okay. I want to pull my paper down and show you, because this I wrote a paper for class.
Tell us what's in it, because this is a fascinating subject.
Because it's been over a decade, so I'm going on memory here. But with honest to God, I had already determined, based on my study, I said, it seems like the crux of this issue today of our contemporary world and this split, this disconnect with the human person when it comes to their health and well-being in the medical field, starts with the philosophy of René Descartes in France with dualism, where it separates the person, and that allows for, it's like the start of a modernist conception of this person that is, it separates the person, the body and the soul. It's two separate things. And then beyond the distinction, they did a separation. And there was this focus on the corporeal reality to the detriment of the person.
Right.
And then with the advancement of technology, you've got tools, you've got even the whole notion of a medical doctor, and the establishment of the first medical school is then happening, because Descartes would be early 17th century. Then 18th century, you've got advancements in tools, technology, the start of medical school. You've got the founding of the U.S., because all those European, because I'm studying Western tradition, so that all these European influences are translated to the U.S. And then the start of dentistry, that was huge. And then and that's really where I was, and you could see it. And my point was to see it reflected in the art, and you can see with certain paintings that they're in what they called a theater. A surgeon's theater, where they were performing either autopsies or operations. It seemed to me that there was little difference between an autopsy on a cadaver and an operation on a live person. And then with the invention of ether and anesthesia, huge. Because what is interfering with the effectiveness of an operation, where an outside force, hopefully well-intentioned, goes into this vessel, cuts the skin, goes into the sinew and the muscle and the bone, and either extracts something or adds something or alters something. And also, I also looked at the view of the human person according to literature. So I reviewed Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which Dr. Frankenstein fashioned his monster from different cadaver parts, suggesting that if we can take it apart from the human person, we can put it back together and then just infuse it with some sort of, lightning, and then but what you do is create a monster. And that's the disintegration. Once disintegrated, I would say, can the human person be fully integrated again? That's a good question to ask.
Yes.
And all these, we can translate this into the MFR speak, the idea of the life we live, traumas, falls, accidents, operations, abuse, all those that even emotional and philosophical ideas, anything to challenge and potentially damage the human person integration, you've got to ask, well, okay, well, can we, after that disintegration happens, how can we go about integrating again? I think that's what life is we're in a consistent search for complete integration.
Yes, beautiful. I love this. And, here you go, a person who went through so much chronic pain and so many different symptoms, issues, looking from doctor to doctor, not getting any answers. So you experience that in person, what happens when there is this tremendous objectification of the human body. It simply doesn't work. It doesn't heal us. It doesn't help us, right?
No, no, because it mechanizes, like you said, it objectifies the person. It becomes mechanistic, and then are we anything different than a machine? Because look at the next thing: the Industrial Revolution, the rise of the machine. So all of these things happening in our history, our society, in science. And it's just the way it is, and we can make a judgment or not. But that is lending itself to this objectification of the human person. Never mind on a moral level, in, let's say, with relationships, sexuality, pornography, things like that. That's another objectification. It's just all feeding. It's the new. That's the disease, I think. It's not, because also there's this discovery of in biology and microbiology, they understood the idea of germs, and they understood, and then penicillin was invented. All of these things are happening, and it goes more and more on the microscopic level. You see, like the more and more they want to get to the inner workings of something and take something apart and figuring out what is it that makes it tick, function, work, change. And that's valuable information. But if to stay there is to cut your foot off beside, or cut your nose off to spite your face, if you don't reintegrate it or see how it fits in the whole, or understand how the whole is much more than the sum of its parts, you end up with a monster. And that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a health system, a disease control system that is literally a monster. And it's well, okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is fascinating, and I don't want to interrupt you, but also, there's so many different topics that are coming up, and yes, it is an ineffective system, and not only ineffective, but so objectifying. It takes away hope and a possibility of true recovery, and you've experienced it personally. But
yet it has. I'm sorry, Monica, but I want to say that it does have a place, and it has. I mean, there's a great deal of benefit that comes from it. Okay.
Yes.
I don't want to. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, and we of course don't want to question that. Medicine is very important when there is an emergency or when there is something that needs to be done, and it's very effective. But in terms of healing from chronic pain, in terms of healing from a trauma, that objectification is disastrous. And then you come in as this person who's been in search for your own healing and for your own understanding, scientifically speaking, of what happened over those centuries to our healthcare, so-called, and to our ability to heal. And then you circling back, becoming a massage therapist, and then you become you start to delve into the world of myofascial release. So I would love to hear back, you started talking about your encounter with John Barnes and with myofascial release when you started studying this healing art. And so how did it come together for you? Were you still in pain when you went to courses?
I'm going to just say it was the vortex, because I went into that conference room at Poco Diablo Resort, and John spoke for 10 minutes, and he literally opened his talk, because it's the same information, just he just moves with it, and he mentioned the dualism of the human person, split because of Rene Descartes, and that lost the emotions. And I'm like, this guy is speaking my language. He is answering the question I've had for 20 years. He's telling me he's going to show me how to,
Find an alternative.
relieve my pain, and in a gentle way. And I mean, that was the hook. It got me. Never mind, I love to read like I said, I read his brochure and it resonated with me and I wanted it to be for me. And I came to the healing seminar investigating whether I'm going to pursue this line of, additional study in my profession. And so I went there for a professional upgrade and I got a professional and a personal upgrade. So, yeah.
So how did you find it different? How did you find this approach different to, all that medical journey you went through?
Ooh, I feel like I need, time to articulate that because it was just like MFR, subtle, profound shift. It was a complete reorientation of how to look at things. Beautiful. And it was as if something that was, the gears of a watch need to dovetail together beautifully. And for so long, I had other mechanisms pushing those together because they weren't quite lined up. Or I was on the railroad track, but not on the track itself, just on the side. And so I'm moving along, but I'm just dragged on the journey because I'm not on the track. I'm going in that right direction, but everything is hard because I'm not lined up with the track.
Yes.
And when I get to MFR, it's like it refocuses the lens, and everything comes into clarity. It's like when they realized the Hubble telescope wasn't even focused right. Imagine the pictures they got after that. So already it's amazing what they're doing. And then you fix the view of it properly, and you can see for all that it is. It's astounding. So that's what I think. That's what I feel like MFR does. It literally puts things in the proper perspective and view.
Beautiful.
And it just clicks, and opens up access to a world I knew was there. I just didn't know how to get there.
So how does art come in this process? How does your creativity, because you are such an incredibly creative person, how did it weave into the healing journey?
Well, practically, personally, I was using work with a creative expression because it was, that was when you're trying to get over fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue and chronic pain, they're like, well, rest and good diet and exercise and find a creative outlet. And so I was finding a creative outlet. And I like clay. Well, clay allows me to literally play in the dirt. And it's just something I enjoy doing. And was willing to put it, it kind of captivated me. And I was finding myself a lot of times in the studio for hours and hours on end, not tired. Or tired, but willing to push through. It wasn't a drudgery, it wasn't work, it was joy, so and everything fascinated me when I met other artists or when I saw what they could do or understand it. And so I think it was just the experience I had. Is it true of all art? No, I don't think so. Not for me. It might be for somebody else. I think art has that potential to have that, but it's more about the idea that, find what you love or do what you love and you never work a day in your life kind of thing. So although I'm not opposed to working hard, but I want to enjoy it and see the outcome. And I don't want to do anything just any old machine could do. I think that's, if it can be done by a robot, I'm not interested in it. Because it's not about the work, it's about the person.
But it seems to me like clay, it's a very tactile experience. I've never done it but just by imagining it. So there is something very tactile, very, very embodied, very physical about this in particular.
Yeah, and I thought it was just because I like to work with my hands, and that's why I thought the massage therapy was so apropos. Again, it's not that I got into massage therapy by accident, but it wasn't my first choice, but it was the right choice.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Because when I was looking at my future career-wise, I was operating from channel 3, or channel 5. Very linear, very heavy on the academics, and established societal norms. What was considered success, what was maybe without unspoken expectations in my family, although they just wanted me to be happy. They never said I had to do one thing or another. And so it just came from my upbringing, which is in the society, right? I mean, John says that our education is mass hypnosis. And while he is right, it can also be true education. And I think I have a little mixture of both.
Yes.
And
right.
So, yeah.
You took it in your own hands too. You did your own research. You used your mind to inquire and to be skeptical and curious. And I think that's what makes it true education.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I had good resources. I had the right people around me. I had the right influences. I had the right institutions to go to. I say right. I mean, they were right for me. And it wasn't flawless. There were hiccups along the way. And because I tried to go full speed ahead all the way through in that way. And that didn't work for me. So I could turn around because I was on the wrong path.
Beautiful. Yes. So I mean, I would love to hear more about your healing journey, because you told us about all this arduous path where you got into all the pain and so many symptoms that were not solvable by your traditional objectifying medicine. But what helped? Was it the myofascial release, or?
MFR has certainly been the most effective and efficacious. When I found myself at a debilitating point in my early 30s, around the year 2000, and I had already gone to 7 different Western type of doctors, including a neurologist, a psychiatrist, psychologist, eye doctor, chiropractor, etc. And then those are where I went and did not find solutions. Where I went and did find solutions included, I had my female hormones. My sister was a fertility care instructor, and so she helped me map my fertility biomarkers. And then with that information, I turned it into an expert in fertility care. It would be the John Barnes of the fertility care. And then with that, I was given hormone replacement therapy. In the meantime, I was able to get on an antidepressant because I had such headaches and sleep problems, which are the number that and the feeling of blue, because I had diagnosable clinical depression and anxiety, and mine were manifest in physical symptoms primarily. And so I was able to get on a medication that I tried the tricyclic antidepressants, then didn't give me much results. But then at this time with the SSRI, things like Prozac, Zoloft, Cymbalta, those not Cymbalta, but Celexa, they were rather new. But and I got on Zoloft, and it worked with my chemistry. And I knew that because I had family members who instructed me that during their struggle and journey to look into that. So that would be an imbalance. So I have imbalances in my reproductive hormones. I've got imbalances in my neurotransmitters. Then I was going to the doctor, and they were saying you have PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian disorder, because I had the signs, really bad periods. Oh, and it wasn't clearly marked, but that was an insulin and blood sugar issue. So I was having problems with that. So I went to an endocrinologist thinking, well, I've got 3 major issues. They're all endocrine based. Maybe this guy can synthesize and synchronize and find what's causing all this. Clueless. Didn't know a thing. Totally wasted my time. Meanwhile, I did go because my headaches and my jaw pain. I did go to a maxillofacial specialist for TMJ, and I was fitted for a night guard and given he was a specialist of his field. He's passed it. And I mean, he would be the type of person, he and his colleagues would be the type who would take a class from John for dentistry and TMJ stuff. And he helped me with that device, and I wear it still because I clench and grind. This is not even my lower back problem and going to the chiropractor all the time. I had already seen, okay. I was desperate. I was in a health food store and at my wit's end, and I asked this lady about herbs because I'm like, that's something I haven't tried yet. Let me try that. And she's like, well, my mom has found this guy, and he seems to be really helpful. You might try this. And he was actually a licensed acupuncturist who used an acupressure to clear allergies. Mm-hmm. So he used, it's called Nambun Trat or something. But I spent a lot of time and money with that guy, and he helped me a lot. And that was with acupressure to clear allergies and different supplements. Then I found a naturopath, and she was just selling me a lot of supplements and doing muscle and energy and clearing that. And then through that contact, I found a DO, Doctor of Osteopathic Medicine, teacher in the University of North Texas, very well respected, very educated, very learned. He had me come in. He took the because I had already gone to the chiropractors and complained that they didn't really help me. And I went to this one guy, and he goes, you need to lift in your shoe. And I'm like, okay, because my pelvis was off, and I would correct it in the morning, and it would be off by the afternoon. It wasn't really sticking and all that. So I went to the DO. I have to apologize already because, you have to go one way and go the other way. Anyway, he did offer me help at a time I had no other option. And later I found out it wasn't a long-lasting, permanent, or lasting help, but I'm glad it was part of my journey. I worked with him for years, paid him a lot of money, sent him to, Hawaii a couple times, but he fitted me for a lift, orthotics, and I saw him for an adjustment or treatment, and I saw him for almost a decade, and I was up to an inch and a 17th/16th lift in my left shoe to correct the discrepancy. Now I know it doesn't have to be that way, but it did. It got me about 85% better. It allowed me, all these things allowed me to go from part-time to full-time employment to having a full life, then being able to have the energy and wherewithal to do other things with and study. So for me, it was so much better than where I had come from, which is I got to stop life and start over because there wasn't a moment I wasn't in pain with a headache, that debilitating, different degrees of pain. And I'd gone to neurologists and tried the migraine medicine, which made me sicker. I couldn't sleep or sleep well or feel rested. I tried to exercise, or I even got a trainer. I tried yoga. It was too painful. And having been a dancer, and it was humiliating. This is all not just a physical, but emotional and a spiritual difficulty, And I try to explain it away in my religious tradition, and I had come to an end at a point where it didn't help me anymore. I did have suicidal I had death ideations, but I never considered suicide. Probably because of my religious upbringing and the strong family support I felt. Yeah. And the fact that I had not turned over every rock. I was like, okay, there are more rocks. Let's just keep going, turning the rocks over, trying to find the solution. So, but my point is, I did feel that desperate. I just didn't do anything desperate because I had a strong support system.
Yes.
And go ahead.
No, I was actually, I was just trying to, what I was trying to say is that, but you also were driven by that you knew there's something out there. You were looking for it.
Correct. I think driven beyond just intellect or academic or logical thinking. I was like, there has to be more to this. Even here's another aspect of my I was trying to prescribe meaning to it. So when I was in my graduate program and I did my final studies, I studied the theology of the body by Pope Saint John Paul II. I studied the psychology of pain. I wanted to explain how chronic pain changes your personality, because I did not feel it myself. I was a different person. And then I needed hope, and so I studied also from John Paul II, the redemptive value of suffering in its theological. So I was looking outside of the natural world because I didn't know what else to do.
Yes.
I was certainly disappointed by what was available to me. That's why when I found John and it opened up that world and gave me just a refresh of hope, and it's just a beautiful balance.
Yes, so beautiful. And I think that there's parts that you mentioned that are very important. So chronic pain, I mean, it's such a difficult journey, but also it really builds your character. And I think that it builds you as somebody who's, I'm not going to give up, right? And I'm going to look for the meaning of it beyond just the physical reality of it. And I want to honor that. And I think that that's one of the things that's so incredibly important for anybody who's struggling, because the answers may not be right there. There may not be 100% answer that will fix your problems, but there's a bigger meaning perhaps. And it's easy to say, of course, sometimes, but it does seem like that's what can drive you in the healing and recovery, inquiring and asking questions and looking beyond.
Well, I certainly chose to see it as part of my preparation to help other people.
Yes, exactly.
Because I want to help other people. I love people, right?
Tell us more about how you help other people and what is your approach to that?
How I help other people? Well, I became, I wanted to, and I even tried being a missionary to reach out to people around the world and make the world a better place and meet them where they are and help them with their needs, whatever those are.
So how about as a therapist? How about as a therapist?
As a therapist, and I'm going to relate to the 10 years I worked for a resort spa, and I had the opportunity to be, and this is also an extension of how I would teach my classes to the students. It's meeting the person where they are and helping them define and reach their goals. When they came into a language class and they wanted to learn English, I wanted them to be empowered with that language so they can navigate their life in the U.S., because I understood what that was like. So when I saw when somebody would come in, my favorite guests at the spa were people in pain, not the people who, I'm just here with my bridesmaid friends and we're having a weekend, and that's nice and I'm happy for them, but I related and connected with the people who came in and says, I'm hurting and I'm looking for results, or I've tried this and that and the other, and I could relate to them. I can empathize with them. I can give them encouragement. All I can do is share my experience and let them take that information. And if they need, and as a therapist, because of my background and my study, I could speak with some authority and give them some suggestions, with the caveat that I'm not a doctor. However, I have found, through my training and experience with other people, So
through your experience, I think that this is profoundly important, that, as therapists, if we go through our own healing journey and through chronic pain, we actually can relate to people. And I think that's where it becomes not objectifying, but actually empowering.
Oh yeah, it's that's to me is true healing. That's everything else is just maybe good care, but it's not true healing. You know what I mean? Yeah, because like I said, if they could read it in a book and do it for themselves, or a robot could administer it, or a machine could administer it, there's value in that. I'm glad those resources are around. But what makes me different is that I'm not those things. I'm who I am, and I can meet that person as they are. And except for a handful of cases, I believe by being authentic in my own integrity and showing up, then I made their life better, because they made my life better. This one guy said that, because I was doing a body treatment in a spa, and he goes, "Oh, I would vote for you for president." I said, "Yeah, because if all the world leaders had this kind of treatment, personal care and relaxation, and free to let go on the table and relax, then there would be world peace." So that was my mission in the massage room. It's like, I want world peace, or I want fairness and justice and people to be healed. And I can't do that on the world stage, but I can do it right here in the room with the person that's with me. And so I was bringing about world peace one body at a time. That was my mission.
I love your motto. This is just
right.
Awesome.
Because people come in super stressed out from their life, from their problems, from their situations, their aching, their pain, or whatever. And yeah, maybe I only had 55 minutes with them, but I could do what I could to give them some relief and some hope. Now, that was in the massage realm, and that allowed me to practice. When I learned MFR from John, and he was talking about building the proprioceptive, again, he gives me a new vocabulary. He helps me see it in a new way, a new perspective. So it's like I'm attaching this new way of being to something I already know. I'm just coalescing things. So, like you say, stay centered and present. Okay. I know I do that, and I can do that. Let me practice doing that. And consciously practice being fully conscious. So I got to practice that, let go of the outcome. Ooh, that was hard. Get to practice doing that too, or, and I was studying MFR and reading the books and trying to get my head around quantum physics and, being open to think about things differently. Giving credence to feelings. There was a time, I literally needed help coaching, spiritual coach, identifying my own feelings, feeling them, giving them a name, identifying them, allowing myself to feel them, resolving them. I mean, that's all been part of my journey, even before I met John Barnes, because I had so been wrapped up in, I guess, as a product of our society, and based on these logical, objective ways I was trying to do life in Channel 5, I was just, my creative tank was empty, and I needed to start with some basics. And that's why I got into the clay. The clay was just healing. It was allowing me to be in Channel 3 without knowing that I was in Channel 3. I mean, in high school, they had a book, drawing on the right side of your brain, and John talks about the left and the right side of the brain. I was like, oh, so if I keep, right. So I'm drawn to it. I want to nurture it. I just didn't know that's what I was doing. And I think that's what the clay, having an art outlet allowed me to do, is be in Channel 3, nurture Channel 3, and it's like permissible. You know what I'm saying? And I even struggled in my journey as first of all, I didn't call myself an artist for a long time because I didn't feel like I was worthy. And then I had, in the world of art, there's the technique, the techne of it, there's the aesthetic of it, there's the time then that the artist, the creativity takes over, but it's only at the service of but it can only be at the service of the technical skills. I had a drawing teacher who said, good drawing is 10% talent, 90% practice. You just got to know the skills and practice them. So so all of those theories in my mind, same with the clay. I used to throw on the wheel and say, oh, I'm going to let the clay guide me. Well, the clay is an inanimate object, okay? Mm-hmm. And if something comes out a certain way, it's not because the clay wanted it. Or maybe it is. Maybe that's what you believe. No, it's because this technician doesn't have a skill set. So, I mean, you have to practice your skill set.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
And be open to the creative part, which may be this, how do you define it? This relationship with the medium. So, mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm working on somebody because I'm in their fascia. How am I an artist? Mm-hmm. Well, I've applied myself, discipline to learn the skills and practice what's the good part of my channel 5. Now, in contact with that person, I want to be in channel 3. Set aside the thinking, stop the talking, that's big, and be there. And be okay with being there. And be all there. And then feel. And be okay with it. And so it's all about attending to it. And that only to me, it's just as far as an art form, it's our skills. Same with language. Same with art. Like, it takes 10,000 hours mm-hmm. to become a master of a particular skill. And that is, I did this study when I was teaching language, trying to prove to my dean, we cannot, have these people take a 20-hour class and expect them to be speaking a foreign language. It doesn't happen that way. That's not how we learn. That's not how nature intended. The same with art, same with MFR or any body work. It's repetition over time, the time element.
Yeah.
And the repetition. So, and being present, you got to be there to do it.
Yes. Well, it's beautiful though how you brought it back to full circle of, both in art, in healing, in learning, we have to master the skills and the basics. But then there is the part when we let go and let the creativity take over. And that's where we become both artisans and artists. Right?
In itself, in itself, that whole process is a dance, which is an art form.
Beautiful, yes.
Right?
Yes.
So it all comes back. It's fractal. It's fractal.
Yes. So having those skills, just objectively knowing what we do, but also introducing that intuitive, creative part, that seems to me like that's the key to therapy, to effective healing. Because, if we are just technicians, then we end up as traditional medicine.
Well, we just mechanize everything. I mean, we just, yeah.
And of course, like we said, it's very important to acknowledge that medicine is very important. We have to have it.
There's the place for it, for sure.
But, it's not helpful in true deep healing because it's lacking that part of creativity, of letting go, of just going with the intuition and with the felt sense of the body that guides us. So I really appreciate how you brought those two together, mm-hmm. And how, like for me, what I've learned is like, yes, it's both art, it's healing, it's therapy, it's learning anything where we kind of bring those two pieces together, the creativity mm-hmm. and the skill. And mm-hmm. that, to me, that makes us human, because we're not just technicians, mm-hmm. but we also are creative.
Well, and you can use another analogy is being in the kitchen. If someone likes to cook, so at the beginning you might have to follow the recipe word by word and measure everything out. But once you get the skills, then you can start being creative with it and tailor and make it the way you want to. The same is true, I think, both with at least with the manual therapies that I've been privileged to learn, the massage therapy, the energy work, the MFR. There's the skills are necessary because they lead you to the opportunity, the freedom to bring the rest of it there. And that's the richness, but you can't mine that richness without some skills. And mm-hmm. so they're both important. And it's not enough just to be good intention and be all being, no, you gotta, mm-hmm. that I think that the business aspect of MFR keeps it real, because you have to be professional. You're still working in this world and society and in this country, or presumably, or so on. But there's certain standards, professional standards, that are going to be required.
Yes.
So we have,
Well, thank you for bringing those two, that perspective together. It's a very balancing perspective, I think. And we have to have the two sides of the scales. And so in terms of like a conclusion, like if you were to give some words of wisdom or guidance to anybody who maybe is going through that journey now of trying to find solutions for their pain, for the suffering, for the chronic, injuries and pains that they're going through, and they're still sort of in the dark, like, what would you share with them?
Two kind of tenets of the journey, and really any endeavor, is the persistence and the patience. Because you have to, if you've already determined it's the right thing, or you're discovering if it's the right thing, it's not one and done. You got to do some repetition. You got to do some, do it over time, many times, test it out, give it a chance. So you got to be persistent with it. You got to keep doing it, so it takes some self-discipline. And then you also have to be patient. If it's supposed to, be patient with yourself. Because in my case, although it seemed like my pain showed up one day, I found out because of John, thankfully, I probably I had a congenital issue, and all my life, the structure of my body was off. And so at age 19, that was just the tipping point. And when the pain became untenable, it didn't go away. It became chronic because I had stuff in the past. And then having just gone through the fascial pelvis and the women's health, and having treated on the coccyx and all the times I've fallen in my life, I'm sure that had something to do with it. So it's in there, it's in the fascia. But I didn't feel it. And so yeah, patience and persistence with yourself. I had, and not to limit yourself to one thing, because MFR is essential for me. Mainly because I've already tried so many other things, but other things have worked. They just it wasn't complete. But also listen to yourself to know when you're done with something. There is an internal wisdom that we have. So it's okay to trust that and test that. And that's why you need to be patient with yourself.
I love what you said, trusted and tested.
Okay, great. Yeah, test it and test it. Yeah. Right. I mean, I think that's right. Because someone very wise reminds me, well, no one's going to take care of me the way I can take care of me.
Yes.
I'm responsible for my self-care. And because I want to help others and I love and care for others, I have to make my self-care paramount. And as uncomfortable as that might come, I'm learning to do that. So I get to practice and stumble and start again every day.
It's a beautiful way of concluding your thoughts. I mean, I know we could talk for hours about your story because it's so fascinating. And there's I feel like we just went into, you just got into the bare surface of, all the different endeavors and the learning and studies and exploration and creativity that you've experienced in your life. But I feel like that was, to me personally, just hearing your story and hearing your reflections, especially, was very nurturing, very nourishing, and very inspirational.
Oh, thank you, Monica.
I
Thank
really
you.
felt like, when you talk about persistence and you talk about not giving up and listening to your own wisdom, I think this is a message that like we so need in our society. And that's, to me, it is very empowering. I'm into empowerment. How do we empower ourselves? And I think that only can come from the inside. And I think your story really illustrates that beautifully on many different levels, in many different aspects of that. So I just wanted to honor that, and just really thank you for sharing the teeny part of your beautiful story and all that you were able to bring in. And yes, well, I hope that it was entertaining to you in some way or another. And yeah.
Well, it's very humbling. I mean, I get to, be the center of attention. So while that builds the ego, it's the fact that you were so kind with your comments that it's actually quite humbling. So I do appreciate it, and I hope it helps somebody. That would be my intention always. But I sure hope so, because it's don't catch me on a day that I don't feel that way. It could be different tomorrow. So it does. Yeah.
Is there a way that people could get in touch with you if they were interested in looking at your art and just
Absolutely
about you?
Right now, I'm as a member of Saltgrass Potters.
Okay.
.com. So I have I'm on there, and then to reach me personally, they can email me at Hotmail. Just use my name, Pauline Hugger, at hotmail.com. And a lot of stuff goes to junk, but if you let me refer to this podcast, I'll get back to you and answer your questions. And then someday I'll have my own Facebook page and podcast and web page, and yeah, I've been living, I don't have time for all this stuff. No.
You have a lot of stuff on your hands. We know that. Well, Pauline, thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
And, gosh, I wish we had 5 hours at least today, so we can hear more of your story. Maybe we'll get together again at some point.
I would love that. Yeah.
Wow, beautiful. Well, thank you for your time today, for sharing. And I do hope that you guys found it inspirational, and that you will reach out to Pauline and check out her beautiful art, her beautiful pottery. And if you are suffering from chronic pain, you need inspiration. I think that hopefully this gave you some insights, and that was my goal. And empower yourself. So thank you, everybody. It was a pleasure, and have a beautiful day. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica.